Good afternoon, Wildcare friends and family. It is Tgiwf. My name is Rebecca Banis. I am the Director of Outreach, Marketing, and Events, and I am on property this Friday afternoon to spend some time with one of my favorite ambassador animals. Her name is Nickerson. She's an eastern screech owl. And today, one of her favorite people, who is also her sponsor, Amy Sanders, is going to share some really fascinating facts about Nickerson and some other owls that you can see here on the Cape and throughout New England. So I am going to mask up and switch my camera over so that you can meet Amy and Nickerson.
All set?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Wildcare friends. We have enlisted Miss Nickerson today to show herself to you. Right now she's spending more time looking at me. We've asked her to show herself to you today, even though she's not in her finest garb. She is molting, and she's pretty high in the middle of a really significant time in her molt. We are trying really hard not to laugh at her. She's already done a lot of her wing feathers and her tail feathers, but she's working on her head right now. And so you get a chance to really see some amazing things about her. And for those of you who don't know, Nickerson came to us as an owlet in a tree that was felled at Nickerson State Park. That's her name. And we thought she was a boy for a long time too, so she worked just fine. Then we found out she was a girl. But so she was not able to be released because she had a blow to the side of her face, and it stopped that eye from growing. She does have the eye there. She isn't really keen on showing it right now because we can't really tell owls where to put things, but where to look. See, we turn her, she just turns her head. So
Baby, look over here. There you go.
yeah,
Good
it's
job.
really hard to get her to do what we want her to do. Getting her to sit with us is about the best we're going to do right now. So she has that eye, but she's functionally blind out of that eye, and it never grew. And so she has one beautiful eye, but not having the binocular vision that comes with two eyes that are forward facing, she cannot effectively hunt. She can fly, but she can't effectively hunt. So she is 5 years old. We expect her to live to be between 14 and, if we're really lucky, 20. Because she's in captivity. She lives in a large shed on our property with another owl named Up that you may have seen if you've been tuning in with us. And so we decided we'd talk a little bit today about this molting and some other interesting facts that we've got about screech owls that we don't always share. So the molting, if you get up really, really close, and it might be better if I put her in better light. If you get up really, really close, you can see these little pin things sticking out of her head. Here, I get her to turn around. I'm pretending to touch her. And those are her new feathers coming in, and as they come in, her older feathers are falling out. We found, you being cooperative?
She is. She's doing a great job.
So we know with eastern screech owls, there's a lot of things we don't know about molting, but we know they do it once a year. We know that feathers take wear and tear over the course of the year, the same way that our hair does, and we get the ends trimmed. But with most birds, and certainly with owls, they molt once a year in August. In the wild, she would be doing this shortly after she raised her brood. They stay fairly quiet during the period of time that they're molting because they're somewhat more susceptible, so they stay out of predators' way, but they can fly. Owls molt from the inside of their primary feathers. Well, let me back up a little bit. They have several different kinds of feathers. These puffy or fluffy little gray ones that you see here are down feathers, which insulate her body. Then she has these other feathers on the outside that are called contour feathers, and she really doesn't like to be touched, so she don't let me have it if I keep doing that. And her contour feathers, amongst her contour feathers are some primary feathers. Those are those big long ones that you find outside sometimes, the really gorgeous feathers, and they help her to fly. On her contour feathers, when she's molting, she starts on the inside closest to her body, and she loses the same one on both sides. And until that one has some new growth on it, she doesn't lose the next one. and then they roll in a like in a pattern that way. They just consistently go out. So they start on the inside, and then they one at a time they go, but never enough so that she can't fly. An eastern screech owl always retains the ability to fly. Some geese do not, and there may be some owls that do not that I'm just not aware of, but there are eastern screech owls do retain the ability to fly. So she wouldn't lose that. I've seen her molt twice now, and the molting down here looks more like this, where you see down feathers kind of coming out under contours. It looks more subtle, and she doesn't lose everything all at once, but she does lose everything all at once on her head when her head gets into molting. She pretty much looks like this. She's lost her, what we call her ear tufts, which are actually not her ears, and so she doesn't have those right. I think she has one remaining right here, but it's not at the right angle. So she's lost those, and those types of feathers, the ones that make up what look like ears, are called corniplumes, and they actually have nothing to do with her ears. They're used by screech owls for communication, and we think that they might be used for some form of sensory stuff too. Communicate to one another. They also use them up for camouflage. When they get frightened and they're in a tree, they'll stiffen up really tall and thin, and they'll put those ear tufts up to sort of look like extra bark or extra branches, and then they'll close their eyes down to these little tiny slits so that you can't see them against the bark. And so that they're also used for that. Hey, sweetie, can you look at the camera and stop looking at me? So she's lost both her contour and her down feathers on her head, but she's getting some new ones. She looks a little ridiculous. Also have learned that these, and I don't think you're going to be able to catch them with the camera. There's these little thin ones that have the shaft of a feather and just a couple of little plumes at the very end of the feather. Those are used for, they're like whiskers on a cat. They're used to help her tell what's touching her and where it's touching her. I'm not sure that you really can, I mean, we had one I showed outside, but it's really, really hard to see. When she's like this, we get a much better chance to see her beak. These feathers right up along her beak are called bristle feathers, and they are feathers, even though they look a little bit more like hairs. They're highly, highly sensitive, so she knows exactly where everything is. Usually when she's fully feathered, we can't see her nostrils or nares in a bird. We can't see the holes that she breathes through. Her feathers usually cover most of the upper, I would say, almost half of her beak. So at this point we get a chance to really see what that beak looks like. Yeah, show you a beak.
Oh, nice profile.
That beak means business. We also get a really good chance when she's like this to get a good sense of that eye. A few weeks ago, Jennifer talked about the eye of an owl and how it wasn't round. The front part of it is round, but not the back part of it. It's sort of like a backwards floodlight, and you're seeing the narrow end on the front, even though that eye looks huge. The fact is that eye takes up a huge amount of space back in her skull. And this gives us a chance to see how that places a little bit better. And she's got 3 eyelids. We have 2, one on the bottom, one on the top. She has 3. Her top one goes down for blinking. Her bottom one goes up for sleeping. And then there's a nictitating membrane, I'm not sure I said that right, that goes across from the inside to the outside. You see it, you actually can see it a little bit more easily on cats, but she's got a full one that goes all the way across, and that washes her eye and protects her eye in situations where she needs a little extra protection. I think it's kind of cool that the top one blinks and the bottom one sleeps. Because we don't have that. We just, both our top lid goes down for both, and I think that's kind of cool about her. But she's got a lot of extra space back in here where the retina is, and the retina is actually larger than the front of her eye, which is why she can see so well at night. It's really amazing.
I'm just going to toggle over here because Amy brought this amazing visual for us. If you guys can see that, let me just get out of the light here. This is essentially what the inside of an owl's eye, this shape looks like. I know it's a little hard to see. There we go. that's a good representation. Oftentimes you'll hear us say it looks like a floodlight, so I think you can see that there.
Yeah, when I first heard floodlight, I thought, well, then the big round part in the front must be that big part of the floodlight. But it's not. Actually, the bigger part is in the back. This is the smallest part of the eye. So it's just really remarkable how those eyes work. Another cool thing I found out actually just yesterday, and I'm really excited with this fact because I just found it out, is that owls don't have symmetrical ears. One is higher than the other, and we tried this morning to see if Nickerson would let us look to figure out on her which one was higher. And she would not. On the owls that have that round face feathers, like a barn owl, those owls you can actually tell by looking at the feathers. If the feathers point a little bit upward at the edge, that's the ear that's a little higher. And then the other side, they should point just slightly downward, and that's the ear where it's lower. That's so that when she's flying, her brain can tell how far away something is by which ear the sound reaches first, which is remarkable. We don't know which one is higher for her, but her ears are basically on the side of her head like ours are behind her eyes, so it would be sort of back here. She's thinking about it.
Yep.
I'm gonna bite that finger.
That's okay. I don't like to have my ears touched either.
Yeah, so she's not interested in having her ears touched.
Oh, but that's a nice close-up of your beautiful face.
Yeah. I do think she's a little funny looking today, but she's putting her pride aside. Another really cool thing I found out yesterday about owls that I'll share with you today was that they have 4 toes, and they have a kind of it's almost like a bath mat texture on the bottom of their feet, which she's not going to let me show you, which are very, very sensitive and helps her tell, what she's touching. But 2 of her toes face forward, and 1 of her toes always faces backward. But the outside 3rd toe or 4th toe on each foot can lock in either forward or backward position. So not many birds can do that, but she can sleep with it locked into either position. And with her feet will lock into a perching position so that when she sleeps, she doesn't have to remember to keep them clasped. They would just naturally clasp on a branch, and so she'll stay that way. When she locks them, they stay locked, which is really kind of cool. So this toe right here is the one that can go forward or backward. Very handy little adaptation there. Sometimes people ask us if she can fly, and she can. Her wings are fine. She has an amazing adaptation on the wings, of the primary feathers of her wings, in that the edges are ever so slightly curled on the end. There's just this little teeny wave-shaped curl on the very, very tip that you can't see. It's on the tip of each of the fronds of the feather, and that breaks up the air running across the feathers in a way that other birds don't have, and it allows her to fly absolutely silently so that she can sneak up on things in a way that other birds can't do. She's eyeing that fly.
I know.
How about we don't go for that fly, okay? Okay. So and unfortunately, she is not cooperative about us pulling that wing out to take a look. But you still can't see the curl because it's on that leading edge of every primary feather. It's all the little fronds that curl up, and you need a microscope to see that. But that tiny little adaptation on the front edge of the wings enables her to fly silently. There's also some scientists, and they're studying this now, who think it may raise the pitch of the sound that comes off of her wings ever so slightly, the little bit of sound it does, so that it goes out of the range of hearing for her prey, which is also kind of cool. Got any questions coming in?
I actually brought 2. I have a little young person in my life that we read a fact that because owls have that feature in their feathers that you just discussed, that they give up waterproofing. Is that true for owls?
It is true that they do give up complete waterproofing. They have some waterproofing. Another adaptation that owls have is that somewhere right around in here, and she'll get really angry if I do
Yeah,
this.
I'll just get close.
But somewhere right around in here, she has a little opening for a gland, like we have sweat glands. She has a little opening for a gland that makes a very, very thin oil. And when she's preening, she will take that oil with her beak and she'll spread it around her feathers. So she has basic rainwater proofing. She does not have like pond or seabird type waterproofing. She's not fully waterproof, and so she really needs to get under some kind of shelter if it's like really heavy downpours, that kind of stuff. It does compromise her waterproofing because that feather, has that little ridge on it, with those little ridges. So that is
Awesome.
correct.
And when owls sleep, do they like to sleep on a flat surface, or do they prefer to be curled around something and perch?
That's a good question. Lately, there's been something going around on Facebook that shows owls sleeping flat on their face on like a rug or floor or something like that. And it says at the bottom, the caption on it is, "This is the way that owls sleep." And it's not impossible for an owl to do that. I don't think all those owls were dead. I think they probably caught owls actually doing that. But it's very uncommon. They usually perch, or what we call roost. Because unlike us, we have to, if we curl our fingers around something to hold on to, if we go to sleep, we're going to let go of it because our natural musculature is to be open and loose. And her natural musculature is to be closed. So if she's roosting on something or she's sitting on something and perched, and her feet are locked into that position where she puts them, because she's got to relax them to open them. So where she puts them and sets them is where they will stay when she goes to sleep. So the majority of the time, owls roost or sleep, what we call sleep upright, on a branch or in the hole that they nest in and sometimes take shelter in. They're cavity nesters, and they like to be in deep holes of trees. I'm not sure how often they stay in cavities when they're not actually nesting, but I think it's generally believed that they will roost on a branch up very, very close to the trunk where the wind isn't going to bang at them or anything like that, and also where they're really quite well camouflaged, and sleep upright. Not unheard of to sleep flat, but very, very unusual. Usually when we go in to get them, and we obviously see them sleeping a lot because they sleep during the day, so when we go in to feed them, they're asleep, and we go in to get them out for something like this, they're asleep. This is a little bit like asking her to wash dishes in the middle of the night to get up and work, but we find them upright. She'll be perching. There's an old Christmas tree in there, or there's a box in there that they can roost in. They're upright. I don't think anybody here has ever seen these guys flap. That doesn't mean that they can't go flat. Again, I understand from what I've checked out that they can sleep flat, but very, very rarely do. Maybe more domestic owls or owls that have been raised with somebody would be more inclined to do that because they feel a little safer.
And if Nickerson were in the wild, how many owlets could we expect that she would produce, I guess, per year and over her lifetime?
Well, per year, and I'm not sure when they start reproducing. I'm not sure if they lay eggs or not in their first year. That's a question that we'd have to find out and research that and put that up. If she were in the wild, she would lay between 2 and 10 eggs, and the average is really like around 3 or 4 is what we see most often, is 3 or 4 owlets come in if a nest comes in. So we'd expect 3 or 4 per year. She would roost once in a season. She could potentially roost a second time only if she lost the first nest.
I see.
If if all the eggs were taken or something, she could potentially lay a second group of eggs, but for the most part they would roost and raise one group of chicks. Out in the wild, I think their average lifespan is something like 8 to 10, so let's assume that she has, let's start with 2, that she would roost at 2, or have her babies at 2, and if she did that for 5 or 6 years, then we'd expect her to have 20 to 30.
Wow. Oh, that's more than I thought.
And of course, we hate to think this, but they don't all survive.
Of course.
Lots of them do not survive. They're a prey animal for larger owls. Hawks will eat the babies. Lots of things take eggs out of nests, so obviously they don't all survive. So, but yeah, she'd lay quite a few eggs if she was out in the wild.
And would she always find her way back to the same eastern screech owl mate, or do owls every season find a new one?
She would find the same mate. She would be more or less in close proximity to the same mate for her entire life. She's not a migratory bird. She would live, she's from Brewster. She would have lived here in Brewster throughout her lifetime and stay here all season. Screech owls do mate for life, but if something happens to one of them, they will find another one. Some birds will not, but screech owls will. They will find another mate if something happens to the first one.
So Stephanie just sent me a little fun fact. She says eastern screech owls are often on eggs in the month of March in Massachusetts. They are one of the earliest nesting birds of the season, other than the great horned owls, who may be on eggs as early as February. That's fun.
Yeah, they are early nesters. A lot of people don't realize how early they nest, and they think, like for trimming, and we want to be very careful about tree trimming. Like the dead of the winter is a good time to take down a dead tree. March is not a great time to take down a dead tree because her favorite place to be would be in a hole in a dead tree.
Especially in the month of March.
Especially in the month of March. And then even March, April, May, I mean, they're little for quite a while. They take a while to grow into full strength and abandon that nest completely. So really, dead of winter is your only safe time, like December and January. The only really pretty much foolproof times to take a tree down that needs to come down, and you won't get an owl on it.
That's when all our landscaping friends need the extra work too, so
Yep.
Great choice.
Yep.
I'm trying to zoom in on her eye a little bit so people can see. There we go. Just see that eyelid.
Yeah, she's lost all her eyelashes too, which are more of those bristle feathers that look like hairs, but they're actually feathers. They're the shaft of the feather. She's lost all those, just no eyelids. She's working on them though. You can see the little bristle. She's really working on it. And you're pretty privileged to see her in this state. She doesn't really like to be seen when she's like this. She tends to be kind of cranky when she's molting, although she's doing a really good job today. Last year I took her out for a talk in August when she was molting, and it was hard. It was really, she had a really tough time. And she bit and she bit and she bit and she grumbled and snarled and fussed and fumed, and this time she's sitting really nice.
So does she have trouble regulating her body temperature during the molting, or is that because she does it in sections, does that help her stay?
Yeah, I think because she does it in sections, and also, it's summertime when she does it, so it's pretty warm to begin with. We haven't even gone down into the 60s very much at night. But I think, being summertime, an owl out in the wild, and she is kind of essentially outside. Her shed is outside, and it is screened over probably half of the wall space is screened, so that she gets fresh wind and air, and they have places they can get in out from the rain, but they also get some moisture in there, and they certainly get the regular temperature. But because she molts this time of year and she has a lot of stuff inside of her shed, she doesn't really have any trouble staying warm. And the same thing would be the case with an outdoor owl. They do it right after they had nested, and so they've got the cavity to be in if they needed to be. There's plenty of foliage and stuff on the ground for them to get into if they needed to get warmer, but for the most part, they don't lose everything all at one time, so they don't usually have that problem. So she can thermoregulate just fine.
Awesome. She is a good girl. And that is the end of our questions. So I think we've maybe gotten to, this is a really good time for us to let her go back to sleeping. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nickerson.
Don't laugh at my hair.
We're not laughing. We're not
I'm
laughing.
trying not to laugh. This almost looks like a ponytail back here.
All right, Wild Care friends and family, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I hope you learned something. I definitely did, and Nickerson's one of my favorites to spend time with. I shared with you at the beginning of this that we have been lucky enough that Amy has sponsored Nickerson and has developed this, I think what you can see is a great relationship. She does a lot of education, and Nickerson is a wonderful ambassador animal for us. We also have Up, who is an Eastern Screech Owl, and we want to say thank you to Ken and Hillary Johnson of Orleans. They have decided to sponsor both of our owls for the next year as well. So we are very grateful to them. If you don't know that you can do that, you certainly can. You can log on to our website anytime. We have a page introducing you to all of our ambassador animals and how you can help sort of supplement their care and help us feed them and keep them safe and healthy all year long. And before I log off, Tara Weatherby says hello to Amy and Nickerson.
Hi, Tara.
And also, before I let you go, I just want to remind you, Wild Care is run mostly just on donations, so we live and die by your kindness and support. If you have a little extra right now, you can log on to wildcarecapecod.org at any time. Every $5 helps us help wonderful animals just like Nickerson survive, and oftentimes we're able to re-release them so that they can continue to thrive and populate this amazing place that we all get to call home. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and if you want to rewatch this in the next 24 or 48 hours, all of our TGIWFs along with some of the talks that Amy and Stephanie and Jennifer have done are going to be on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested in rewatching anything, you can find us there. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great weekend.